Hi team, thanks for dropping in on TNT as we check out most of the big Thai news stories around today. Quite a mixed bag. Our feature story is going to be from Nikkei Asia, and it talks about Thailand scrambling to try and sort out its cannabis decriminalisation situation. Interesting because, of course, Nikkei Asia being a Japanese publication, it's got some excellent writers here in Thailand, and it's been written from an international perspective, sort of from the outside looking in, and it can be much more objective about the current situation. So that's a special look at that particular report coming up. But we're going to start with some domestic situations. And we start with a Bangkok Post story. Phuket apologises for attack on a Chinese tourist. Just remembering that a Chinese tourist was attacked by a tour guide. A knife was involved, a cut was inflicted. It all went horribly wrong, probably a lot of misunderstanding of what happened. But this is the aftermath. And there's a photo there, and we'll get to that little animal in the red circle in just a moment, but all happy faces. Phuket officials have met with a Chinese consular official and apologised for a tour agent's attack on a Chinese tourist and reported the penalty given in the case. Now, remember that the Chinese tourism in the past has been very important for not only Thailand's, but particularly Phuket's tourist economy. Some 28% of tourists back in 2019 in Thailand came from China. Injected a lot of tourism dollars. Down the bottom there, on that day, a woman at a Thai tour firm kicked a Chinese customer, inflicted a cut on his arm with a small knife during an argument over the client's demand for a full refund for a trip and his family missed on January the 31st. Story goes on. The government said a tour agent was charged with physical assault and illegal possession of a knife in public, and she was liable to a prison term of up to 3 months and a fine of 60,000 baht. Her firm was suspended from business for 6 months and was being prosecuted for tarnishing the nation's reputation and damaging its tourism image. The offence carried a fine of up to 500,000 baht, according to Governor Narong. Now, again, the situation here is treated quite seriously by Thai officials because they don't want any negative publicity in Chinese social media. And a Chinese consular official said that he believed the incident would not affect Sino-Thai relations. He proposed Phuket officials report the incident and their response via the mass media so that Chinese people would be informed and there would be no repetition of such an incident. Well, sending their media releases off to Western mass media will just be wasted. Chinese people won't be reading that. They'll need to send their PR off to Chinese social media because that's where Chinese people are much more likely to read it. Anyway, the Prime Minister's not so much weighed into this particular issue, but he's noted that there has been a great rise of tourists over the past month, and he's got his own predictions. And also from the Bangkok Post, the PM says tourist arrivals will reach 30 million. So just like the TAT, he's getting into the numbers prediction game as well. General Prayut has instructed the relevant agencies to facilitate visitors' travel and ensure their safety. Well, not knifing a tourist in Phuket would be a great start. Initially, the government predicted more than 20 million foreign tourists this year and later increased the figure to 28 million. I don't think it's ever been up to 28. I think 25 was the latest prediction. And then down the bottom there, more recently, the Prime Minister is confident that tourist numbers will even exceed 30 million. And the first tour group from China since Beijing ended curbs on outbound group travel arrived on a flight to Don Mueang Airport on Monday. So in the past, some of these tour groups have been known as $0 tours. That's where the tour is fully paid for in China before they come to Thailand. Then when they come here, they visit a lot of Chinese-owned businesses and commission-based attractions with the money going into the pockets of the tour groups. And the complaint being, of course, that not a lot of money is going into the pockets of Thai people. That's been a fair criticism. Let's hope that some of these new tour groups aren't in that same category. Now, speaking of that animal, let's go back to that photo we saw. Where is it? Here we go. Now, see that little animal in the middle? So here is one. I've got one too. This wasn't given to me by the governor, by the way, and I didn't have to get stabbed to get one. But I'm not exactly sure what they are. There were about 10,000 of these made for the Asian Games, probably about 8 years ago now, that were held here in Phuket. It's sort of a lobster or insect. Looks like somebody trapped inside a costume. Anyway, I'm just betting that these were made in China. There were some 10,000 of them made, and just giving one of these one of these leftover toys to a Chinese consular official, I think, is an insult. When they should be giving the poor person who was meant to go to the Similan Islands, one, a refund, and two, a free trip to the Similan Islands. But no, give them one of these instead. Now, one Chinese person that won't be getting back to China, just go to this next story. And this from the PattayaNews.com. A Chinese tourist jumps to death from the 27th floor of a hotel in Pattaya. And just a warning that this story does contain comments relating to suicide. And just going to the story, a Chinese tourist plunged to his death from a Pattaya hotel at 6:16 yesterday morning. The victim left a suicide note, and he was a 39-year-old Chinese tourist, and it happened at a condominium located in Nong Pru. A condominium security guard told the Pattaya News that while he was parking his motorcycle, he gazed upwards and saw the victim flailing in the air before tragically crashing to the ground. Security guard was shocked, called the authorities immediately when he came to his senses. And since then, the consulate and the man's family have been contacted. On TNT, and time to check in on this Nikkei Asia article. It does cover the current cannabis situation in quite a lot of detail, pointing out some of the challenges that people who are involved in it, from retail, investment, cultivation, and of course people who are using, probably would like some clarification, and I think this article goes a long way towards it. Thailand scrambles to control cannabis sales and curb use. Thailand is tightening the country's marijuana regulations, issuing new guidance and measures intended to curb a rapid rise in recreational use of the drug since the decriminalisation last year. That was on June the 9th. And over the past month, there's just been a dribble of little public relations releases from the Public Health Department. When you put them all together, they're trying to make up for a lack of government control or the lack of an actual bill. And they're trying to introduce these, well, I suppose, guidelines. The topic is likely to be a major issue in general elections scheduled to happen by May. May the 7th is the hot tip for the election at the moment, and it will be an issue. But just noting over the weekend when a poll was held at the bellwether seat in Korat, a bellwether seat being a seat or a province where whoever wins that province wins the election. And Korat has been that bellwether seat. And in a poll conducted there over the weekend, the Bumjai Thai party, who sponsored this bill with the backing of the Public Health Minister Anutin Charnvirakul, only got 4% of the vote. But it's just a poll. It's not the election, but certainly would be making the Bumjai Thai party having a good look at how they're going to approach this issue when it comes to the election campaign. Moving on in this article, and I'll read this. The government said last month that showing identification will be required when buying cannabis flower buds, which are rich in hallucinogenic compounds, so says Nikkei Asia. Bangkok aims to incorporate buyer information into a national database to track and analyse cannabis sales and purchases. Businesses that fail to comply risk having their sale licence revoked. Authorities have intensified surveillance of dealers, arresting more than 30 people by January in places like Bangkok and the resort city of Pattaya for selling without a licence. And last month, the Public Health Ministry released 10 guidelines for travellers on using marijuana in Thailand, including conditions for purchasing and growing. The guidelines also warn people who smoke marijuana in a public place they can be jailed for up to 3 months or fined 25,000 baht. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there are probably surprised by these guidelines, but these are the current guidelines, as confusing as they might be, for cannabis use here in Thailand. In June, Thailand struck medical marijuana from a list of narcotics banned for use or distribution and made cannabis legal for medical and culinary use. Recreation is not included in the permitted uses, but the country's laws have been unable to handle the spread in its use. And as I've said from day one, this whole situation has been completely misinterpreted by people that think recreational use is just fine. The article goes on, weed dispensaries are not allowed to display signage advertising their wares, and despite that declaration, several shops continue to display signs featuring cannabis leaves. Some sellers in Bangkok give purchasers information on nearby smoking areas. Well, that's the proper and responsible thing to do. The average monthly number of cases involving impaired consciousness and other issues due to marijuana use has quadrupled since the legalisation, according to the Health Ministry, and the regulation of marijuana is stoking tensions within Thailand's ruling coalition. The Bumjai Thai Party advocated for decriminalisation, but a bill to tighten control of the drug's use has failed to pass in September. October, November, it won't get passed in this current parliament. So the people who are interested in the future of cannabis in Thailand, you're literally going to have to wait until this next election. And my prediction is that the results are not going to necessarily support the future of cannabis in Thailand. How they get the genie back in the bottle, I don't know. I don't know if it is even possible. But that's the current situation, and a very good article there from Nikkei Asia. This is the TNT program. It's Wednesday morning, and it was sort of shuffled the set around a bit today. Why not? And Thai PBS World reports that a court grants temporary release to 2 hunger strikers. So this story is sort of gurgling around in the background. A bit of a problem for the Thai government. Don't want the negative PR with these young protesters who are basically starving themselves to death. Let's read what the story says. Thailand's criminal court has granted temporary release of the 2 hunger strikers yesterday at the request of the Thammasat University Hospital, claiming that their health has deteriorated to a life-threatening level due to high levels of blood ketones and a reduction of kidney function, and separate requests for the temporary release of Tawan and Bam were submitted to the criminal court yesterday by the director of the hospital. Both have been treated by the hospital for more than 2 weeks, but they're still technically being held on remand after they voluntarily revoked their own bail and were sent to the Central Women's Correctional Institute. Both are facing multiple charges, including lèse majesté, which is Article 112 of the Thai Criminal Code, involves insults and negative comments towards the monarch or the Thai royal family. And the 2 hunger strikers, however, expressed surprise at the court's order to free them without bail because they didn't want to be freed to start with, but have demanded through their hunger strike the release of other political prisoners and detainees, according to a statement from them. And down the bottom there, the criminal court has rejected the bail requests for 8 detainees of the Talugas protest group because they were charged with serious offences involving the use of explosives and they might attempt to escape. So a bit of a struggle there for those 2 protesters. I suppose all we can do is wish them well and hope they can return to health. And those stories of the Thai protests sort of gurgling under the radar in a lot of Thai media at the moment. Big thanks to 5 Star Marine, our sponsor. Thank you very much for their ongoing support. They've been with us for about 120 shows now. And if you'd like to head out to one of the islands, a private tour indeed, or one of the islands off Phuket, then contact 5 Star Marine. And there's also a link in the description of this video. We move on to our next story now. This one comes from Thailand Business News. Thailand sets 24 billion baht budget to subsidise domestic EV battery production, and the Energy Minister said the subsidy is one of the measures agreed upon by the National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee at its first meeting of the year. The state subsidy is expecting to help manufacturers cut production costs, which in turn would make EVs more affordable in the domestic market. 24 billion baht is a lot of batteries. Let's move on to more of this story. Additionally, the committee will implement other measures such as a reduction in excise tax for EV battery makers from 8% to 1%. Again, that will make a big change to the bottom line of these battery makers, and these incentives are expected to boost domestic production of EV battery cells with the goal of developing a complete manufacturing base for EVs in Thailand. The ministry added that owing to a number of positive factors, which haven't been named, Thailand has drawn the attention of many leading battery manufacturers to set up their factories in the country. So the prospect for electric cars certainly heating up here in Thailand, and there's about 5 models now that are available between about 750,000 baht and 1.2 million baht, and they're getting a lot of orders. So I think the Thais seem to like the idea of electric cars. Some of the new battery technology is getting around a lot of the earlier problems with electric car batteries. So I think there's a good future, and great to see the Thai government at least getting behind supporting electric car battery technology and supporting the industries that are getting into it. To our next story today, and Thai PBS World, Thailand records 621 approved surrogacy cases in 7 years. And altogether, 621 surrogacy cases have been approved in Thailand in the 7 years since surrogacy services were legalised. And the law protects children born as a result of assisted reproductive technology, and it was enacted to enable legally married but infertile couples to have children. Under Thai law, a couple who seeks a surrogacy service must receive the consent of a committee tasked with protecting children born as a result. Only married Thai couples can complete surrogacy in Thailand. At least one spouse must hold Thai nationality, and the couple must have been married for at least 3 years. And the surrogate must have at least one child already, and if she's married, she must get prior consent from her husband. In order to crack down on commercial assisted reproductive technology, any selling of sperm and embryos is outlawed in Thailand. And then finally, the article says that apart from surrogacy, a number of foreign couples have visited Thailand to receive in vitro fertilisation treatment, which can generate substantial revenue for the country each year. And there are indeed a lot of private hospitals who are providing those services here in Thailand. And I know several couples that have taken advantage of coming to Thailand and availing themselves of those services. And I'm glad to say that in all cases, they've had a successful result. And with that, I thank you very much for dropping in on today's program. Please subscribe to the channel if you get an opportunity. Appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.